Arnold Rothstein was an American racketeer, businessman, and gambler in New York City. Rothstein was widely reputed to have organized corruption in professional athletics, including conspiring to fix the 1919 World Series. With his banking support and high-level political connections, he soon managed to end-run Tammany Hall to the street gangs. His criminal organization included such underworld notables as Meyer Lansky, Jack Legs Diamond, Dutch Schultz, and Charles Lucky Luciano. Their combined gangs and double-dealing with their own respective bosses subverted the entire late 19th century form of political gangsterism. Welcome back. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Past Crimes channel and leave a comment below to let us know what other past crimes you would like to hear about. With himself at the head, Rothstein turned organized crime from a thuggish activity by hoodlums into a big business run like a corporation. He became renowned for being the one who first understood that prohibition was a business opportunity and a path to enormous wealth. Arnold Rothstein was born in Manhattan, the son of a wealthy Ashkenazi Jewish businessman, Abraham Rothstein, and his wife, Esther. His father had earned the moniker, Abe the Just, for his upright character. Arnold excelled in mathematics, but was otherwise uninterested in school. His older brother had also been studying to be a rabbi. Rothstein was known to be a difficult child who envied his older brother, Harry. Rothstein's father believed that his son craved and became frustrated when he was not the center of attention. He began gambling as a child, but no matter how many times his father chastised him for throwing dice, he would not stop. When asked how he became a gambler in 1921, Rothstein replied that he was always a gambler and couldn't remember a time when he wasn't. He also stated that he gambled in order to demonstrate to his father that he could not be told what to do, and when he gambled, nothing else mattered. Rothstein fell in love with a showgirl named Carolyn Green in 1907. Green, who was only half Jewish on her father's side, was deemed unsuitable by Rothstein's traditional parents. She refused to convert to Judaism as Abraham Rothstein demanded, and he then dramatically declared that he no longer had a second son who was going to violate Judaism's rules by marrying outside the faith. Arnold Rothstein and Carolyn Green got married in 1909 in Saratoga Springs, New York. By 1910, Rothstein had moved to Manhattan's Tenderloin neighborhood, where he established an important casino. He also invested in a horse racing track in Havre de Grace, Maryland, where he was believed of fixing many of the races he won. Rothstein had a large network of informants, deep pockets from some of his father's banking community associates, and a willingness to pay a premium for good information from any source. His achievements made him a millionaire by the age of 30. Rothstein's agents allegedly paid Chicago White Sox players to throw the World Series to the Cincinnati Reds in 1919, arguably the most popular sporting event in the United States at the time. In what became known as the Black Sox scandal, Rothstein bet against them and profited greatly. Club owner Charles Comiskey, a prominent Major League Baseball player from 1882 to 1894, was widely despised by the players and despised for his miserliness. Comiskey, who had participated in the Players' League labor rebellion in 1890 as a player, had a long history of underpaying his players, despite the fact that they were one of the league's top teams and had already won the 1917 World Series. Baseball's reserve clause prohibited any player who refused to accept a contract from playing on any other professional team under the auspices of organized baseball. Players could not switch teams unless their current team granted permission, and without a union, the players had no bargaining power. Comiskey was probably not as bad as most owners, because in 1919, Chicago had the highest team payroll. Gamblers could find players on many teams looking for extra cash during the reserve clause era, like Rothstein. He was called to Chicago to testify before a grand jury investigating the incident. Rothstein claimed to be an innocent businessman seeking to clear his name and reputation. prosecutors were unable to find any evidence linking Rothstein to the affair, and he was never charged. However, there is substantial evidence both for and against Rothstein's involvement in the 1919 World Series fix. According to one version of the story, Rothstein was approached by gambler Joseph "Sport" Sullivan, who suggested Rothstein help fix the World Series. According to the other version, the whole thing started when Abe Attell, an American boxer, and some other cheap gamblers decided to frame the series and make a killing. Despite acquittals in a public trial in 1921, Judge Landis permanently banned all 8 players who were involved in the scandal from professional baseball. The Baseball Hall of Fame eventually expanded the definition of the penalty to include banishment from consideration for the Hall. The ban persisted despite requests for its reinstatement in the decades that followed, particularly in Shoeless Joe Jackson's case. Sporting Blood, a racehorse owned by Rothstein under the alias Redstone Stable, won the 1921 Travers Stakes under dubious circumstances. Sam Hildreth, a well-known trainer, and Rothstein are accused of conspiring to raise the odds on Sporting Blood. On the morning of the race, Hildreth entered the outstanding 3-year-old Grey Lag, which increased Sporting Blood's odds 3-1. The second favorite, Prudery, was allegedly off her feed when Rothstein placed a $150,000 wager through bookmakers. Hildreth removed Grey Lag from the starting lineup just before the start of the game without giving a reason. In addition to the purse, Rothstein took in over $500,000 in bets, but a conspiracy was never proven. Rothstein recognized the business opportunities presented by the onset of Prohibition and expanded into the bootlegging and drug trades. Smuggling of alcohol occurred along the Hudson River, across the Great Lakes from Canada, and into upstate New York. Additionally, Rothstein invested in a number of speakeasies. Later, using his own fleet of transatlantic freighters, he made history by being the first to illegally import Scotch whiskey. He was aware that expensive alcohol would be the chic thing to have. With the help of his banking and powerful political connections, Rothstein quickly made it possible for the street gangs to elude Tammany Hall. When Meyer Lansky, Jack Legs Diamond, Dutch Schultz, and Charles Lucky Luciano joined forces to form a criminal organization, the entire late 19th century style of political gangsterism was undermined by their double dealing with their own bosses. Mr. Big, the Fixer, the Man Uptown, the Big Bankroll, and the Brain were just a few of Rothstein's nicknames. Rothstein reportedly commanded a high fee for his services and frequently served as a mediator in disputes involving the New York gangs. His preferred office was Lindy's, located in Manhattan at Broadway and 49th Street. He frequently conducted business on the street while seated on the corner, protected by his bodyguards. Rothstein placed wagers and gathered money from people who had lost the day before. Arnold Rothstein appeared to be a successful bootlegger, but he wasn't happy. Eventually, his insatiable desire for money drove him into the drug trade. By 1925, Rothstein had established a sizable criminal empire and was one of the most powerful criminals in the country. Up until George Remus Rise, he was the biggest bootlegger in the country for a while, having an estimated net worth of over $10 million. He was one of the wealthiest gangsters in U.S. history and is widely considered to be one of the founding fathers of organized crime in the United States. Rothstein was also responsible for tutoring up-and-coming gangsters like Meyer Lansky, Dutch Schultz, and most notably, Lucky Luciano. During a business meeting at the Park Central Hotel in Manhattan on November 4, 1928, at 7th Avenue and 55th Street, Rothstein was shot. He would eventually succumb to his injuries 2 days later and die at the Manhattan Stuyvesant Polyclinic Hospital. The shooting was reportedly linked to debts owed from a 3-day-long, high-stakes poker game in October, for which Rothstein owed $320,000. He claimed the game was fixed and refused to pay. The murder was intended to punish Rothstein for failing to pay his debt. George Hump McManus, a gambler, was arrested for homicide, but later acquitted for lack of evidence. Rothstein refused to reveal who killed him while he was still alive, responding to police questions with, "You stick to your trade, I'll stick to mine," and also replied, "My mother did it." At the time of Rothstein's death, Prohibition was already well underway. Various street gangs were squabbling over control of the distribution of alcoholic beverages, and the meticulously designed political boss structure of the late 19th century was in total collapse.